Hello everyone, welcome back to a special edition of the Cozy Corner. It has been a while since I've been on BookTube because I have been working on a very special project that you are about to see. I decided to do a book swap with my mama, and we decided to trade our favorite books and read those over the past month or so. This idea was taken from the Irish reader whose name is Kevin. He lives in Ireland, obviously, but he is one of my favorite booktubers. I love him so much. I don't ever watch a video of his and not laugh. It's so good. If you want a place to start with his stuff, I 100% suggest that you watch his Reading the After series for the first time. It's so good. I love all of them. He also makes the slog through all the Stephenie Meyer Twilight books, including The Host, but the After series, I think, it's chef's kiss. It's so good. And he recently just started watching the After movies and commentating on those as well. So go check out Kevin. He did this with his mom, and I thought it was the best idea. And so I decided to do it with my mom. Originally, we had intended to do this in time for Mother's Day. That did not happen because we started this before Easter. And today, by the time we wrapped everything up, it is after the first week of June. So getting it done in time for Mother's Day did not happen, but we had fun nonetheless. So included in this video, you're going to see vlogging videos from both my mother and I reacting to the books that we chose for each other, as well as interspersed throughout updates, questions that I asked her because she is just as bookish as I am, and I owe a lot of my love of reading to her. And so for Mother's Day, I thought I would ask her a bunch of questions about who she is as a reader and what she likes to read and why she believes reading to be important, just as a way for you guys to get to know her, but to take time and understand a little bit more about my mom. So even though it's closer to Father's Day than it is Mother's Day, I hope you will still enjoy this video. I also want to say that our big reveal at the end isn't necessarily what we thought of the books, because we turns out can't really keep secrets very well, so we revealed most of what we thought throughout the entire process of reading it. So all the opinions you see in this video, we both knew the majority of them, so the big reveal we have at the end is what we would rate it out of 5 stars. And that in itself was pretty surprising. But also I'm going to go ahead and do the housekeeping stuff now so that I can let you enjoy the rest of the video. So if you enjoy this video, if you love your mom, if your mom loves books and you love books, go ahead and like this video and subscribe, because it really does help me out, and let me know what you guys want to see. If you do this with your mom, please tag me in the video, because this is the kind of thing that I want to watch all the time. I love it so much. Okay, I think that's everything. I hope you enjoy this video, and I will see you next time. Hello everybody, this is my mom. Her name is Marika. So I thought that I would have her read Tiger's Curse by Colleen Houck, which is probably my second favorite series of all time. Ironically though, this actually isn't my favorite in the series. The second one is my all-time favorite, Tiger's Quest. But this series is so good. You get fantasy in there, you get action and adventure and curse breaking, which is always one of my favorite tropes. Some romance in there, but I think probably the thing that lingered with me the most over this book was just the amount of historical information that went into this. Hindu culture and religion and legend and lore, and so a lot of it, you learn a lot from this book about other cultures, which I think is probably the thing that I enjoyed the most. It is YA, so I don't know how much YA you read. Probably not a lot.
Not much anymore.
This is my powerhouse. YA fantasy fiction. It's my favorite. But this is the book I picked for you. So I hope you like it.
All right. Okay, if you had to define what your mom likes to read, or what you see me read.
Oh, John Grisham. All the time.
She'd pick John Grisham. Okay.
Or, oh, I did think about this the other day. Probably a Friedrich Bachman. That's your current
Friedrich Bachman is definitely one of my new favorite authors, but I will tell you, you're right. It's either Grisham or Bachman.
Oh, then it's definitely a Grisham.
Okay. So I picked for you the one that was my first encounter with John Grisham, and I saw it actually as a movie before I ever read the book. That's what got me started reading Grisham, was watching the movie The Client on television one time.
Oh.
And I loved the movie, so then I went and found the book and read the book, and it was the first paperback I happened to find at a garage sale somewhere, and I bought that, And so that was my way of getting introduced to John Grisham. So that's the one I finally decided to choose for you. The Client. Good to see it. I like this story. One of the things that really got me engaged in it because it has a very strong female lawyer character in it, as well as kind of a traditional legal thriller. And the mystery, his books aren't really mysteries. They're more legal stories, but the untangling and how you're going to get around all the issues surrounding the child who's involved, the two children actually who are involved in this story, how they get dropped into the middle of that mess and how he extricates himself. The lawyer and how are they going to get around all the pitfalls of the story is what is quite intriguing. And then when you're done with it, you could watch the movie.
Yeah, there you go. What do you think your reaction to this is going to be?
What do I think my reaction is?
Just to predict a little bit.
I think I'm going to be interested in the nonfiction side of it, the what can I pick up and learn, the cultural aspect of it. I'm really interested in that part. I'm interested to find out if it gets too far out there for me, if what's fantasy about it. I mean, obviously fantasy has to sort of be beyond the believable, but if it gets to be unreasonable, is that a fair word? Then I'm worried I won't like it, and I don't want to not like it.
Yeah. I don't read a lot of legal books. Just to be honest, I find law stuff a little tedious. So like you guys really like watching Perry Mason. I like detective stuff or like private investigators, so like Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie, that kind of thing that are surrounding murder mysteries. But I've never really read lawyer fiction. But this sounds like from the summary on the back that it's more of a thriller. I know you really like him. He's one of your favorites, so
he is.
I'm happy to read it. I think this is going to be interesting because I know what I read is not what you enjoy to read. And I think it's the other way around as well.
Hi. This is Marika Carson, Lee's mom, just dropping in on you, spur of the moment here. He has challenged me to read her favorite youth fiction fantasy book. I'll show it to you right here. It's called The Tiger's Curse by Colleen Houck. I just started it today, so I'm not very far. I am a very slow reader, so I don't make a lot of progress when I sit down to read. But I am now about halfway through chapter 3, and we just kind of decided to do an update quickly. My video skills are somewhat lacking here, sorry. I'll get better as I go. Anyway, the book starts off with kind of the hook that gets you interested in what's going on with a prologue that explains how the Tiger's Curse came about, or at least introduces you to the idea as a power grab by a ruler, anyway, of an Indian community, snatching of power from his future son-in-law in order to have all he wants. It has something to do with an amulet. But how that plays out, I'm not quite sure. It also involves the fiancé and the brother of the future son-in-law. So we will find out where that developed. But presumably, the curse had something to do with this prince becoming a tiger and living that way. And then as chapter 1 begins, you're introduced to the heroine, I guess, of the story, the main character in the modern day story, whose name is Kelsey, a teenager, hired for her first summer job as she's getting ready to leave for college. Chapter 1 starts with this great line. That catches your attention, doesn't it? Technically, she says, I was just standing in line at a temp job office in Oregon, but it felt like a precipice. I remember moments like that when I was a kid, where it just felt like the weight of the world was on your shoulders, or these really important jobs or events were happening, or maybe you were supposed to be doing something really important, or something important was about to start happening.
So I guess that's a pretty good attention grabber. The book is obviously, in its first few chapters, written aimed at teen and youth, and I don't know why that sort of caught me by surprise. It shouldn't have, but it definitely has that flavor to it in the language and the writing approach. So I have to kind of readjust my thinking from a lot of the heavy adult literature I've been involved with lately to reading something written to my younger self. So far, we've met the tiger, we've met the heroine, and technically I think the tiger is the hero also. So we'll see where the story develops from there, and I'll let you know how much I'm liking it as time goes on.
Hello everyone. Just wanted to give my first update for The Client by John Grisham. I'm on chapter 5, and so far it's really good. The big thing happened like right away within chapter 1. So there are 2 brothers, Mark and Ricky. They witnessed a man who committed suicide. Mark actually was in the car with the guy as he was attempting to kill himself and was going to kill Mark with him. But while they were talking, the man explained that he was the lawyer of a very famous mob boss who had murdered a U.S. senator, the first U.S. senator to ever be murdered, and knew where the body was, and so told all of this information to Mark. Mark eventually escaped the car, but they did witness his death, him and his little brother, and now his little brother's basically comatose with shock, and they're on their way to the hospital. But this police officer named Hardy had taken him to the hospital, and Mark had basically lied about the fact that he had been in the car and witnessed this event, and had just told the dispatch that there was a dead body in the woods next to where he lived. But this police officer basically sort of caught him in the lie, and now knows that he knows more than he's telling. So it's really interesting. We also got a glimpse into the mob boss's life of not being able to get a hold of his lawyer because his lawyer's dead now. And we don't really know why the senator was killed, just that he was killed, and the reason why the lawyer committed suicide is the one big reason why we think he committed suicide is that the mob boss buried the body in the lawyer's garage underneath this boat. You get all of that within the first 5 chapters, so that's not really any spoilers. But that's a really interesting intro. It's jam-packed full of information, and I'm not really sure where the sort of thriller mystery part will come in yet, or whether there is going to be a big reveal, or if it's just the telling of this story of these kids. But that was a lot of information in the first couple chapters, so I'm kind of expecting a few big twists along the way, or at least an explanation of the crime and how it happened. So far really good. I whizzed through those chapters really quickly. I can tell that I will most likely probably finish this in a few days because it does move fast, which is what I like. I like when things are very fast-paced and keeps you on your toes. So far, so good. I'll update you when I've read more. This is BookTube, and people like to know people's bookish preferences. So my first question is, why do you like to read?
I can tell you I've liked to read ever since I was little. It's something I began very, very young and was an early reader. I suppose now I like it because it is sort of my sign that my day's gotten to a place where I can set everything else down and set aside the busyness, and I have time just to do something for me. So I think that's kind of what motivates me right now, is because I know it's my time, and I can step into somebody else's world and creation of whatever that might be and just relax for a while.
I'm up to chapter 10. I got this far last night, and it's really interesting. We've been introduced to the female lawyer character whose name is Reggie. She's in her early 50s, and I thought it was interesting. Has only been practicing law for about 5 years, and deals mostly with family law and dealing with kids, or women or men who have a past history of being victims of abuse and those types of situations. And it was really by chance that Mark happened upon her because he feels like he needs a lawyer to defend himself, because he's been accused of watching too much crime and law TV, which I think is probably true, and thinks, his whole family's gonna get broken apart because of this thing that he knows, which I don't think will happen, but he's 11 and is influenced by the media he watches, obviously. So he goes to find this lawyer who's, I think, a scumbag, basically enters into his office, and there's a huge crowd of people there, and all of them are in some form of injured state, and panics and leaves, but he feels this compulsion to find a lawyer, and so he walks into Reggie's office, and it's sort of a perfect twist of fate that she happens to be someone who's an advocate for children, and Mark does have a history of abuse. His dad was abusive towards his mom and his brother and himself, and so he pays Reggie $1 as a retainer, which I think is probably one of my favorite tropes for, like good lawyers, where a down-and-out person needs someone to talk to, and the lawyer said, just pay me $1, and I'll be your lawyer, and anything you say is secret now, and you don't have to say anything in front of anybody who interrogates you, and that's just one of my favorite things. So Reggie takes his $1 that he was going to use for the vending machine and becomes his lawyer. And to back up just a little bit from that point in the story, so Barry the Blade Maldonado, who is the gangster who killed the senator, whose body is hidden under the yacht of the dead lawyer who committed suicide. It's very twisted. Has a new lawyer now who we haven't been introduced to yet. We've been introduced to the prosecution, whose name is Roy Fultrig, or also known as Reverend Roy. He's a bit of a dunce. He has this whole team of lackeys who basically do the heavy lifting for him so that he can take all the TV highlight moments and the moments of glory. Nothing super climactic has happened yet. It's still sort of picking through the fallout of that ultimate detonation of, the lawyer committing suicide. But there's sort of this level of tension that I'm sort of sensing that, like, word's going to get out that Mark knows where the body is of the senator who was killed by the gangster, and that the gangster is going to try to off him and his brother, maybe his mom too, I don't know. So there's a little bit of that lingering in the back of my mind. I mentioned before that I'm not a huge lawyer drama fan. I find law a little tedious to read about. I don't mind it so much in TV, but it's not my favorite thing to watch. Saying that, I did watch a lot of Suits. I'm curious to see if this is mostly going to be about the sort of negotiation of how they find out where the body is, and sort of all the drama outside of the courtroom. I'm hoping that's the case. Not that I won't enjoy reading about the courtroom, but it's never my favorite. So we haven't had any of that yet, but I'm excited to see where this story goes. So I'm going to go eat some lunch and then read more.
This is my third try at this video. I might get it one of these days. I have stopped by to give you an update on my progress through this book. I have to say, I don't know if you can tell where my bookmark is there. I haven't gotten very far yet, even though I started it a couple weeks ago. Not because the book itself is slow, but just because my life was a little bit crazy and my schedule didn't allow for very much book reading time until just the last day or two. So the first thing I have to say is that yes, Lee, you were right. I will like this book. She laughs at me, and I sort of rolled my eyes a little because she well knows that fantasy fiction is not really my genre. I've never really spent a whole lot of time reading it, and have never developed a particular desire to want to read a lot of it, but she was quite sure that I would like this book. And she's right. I do like it so far. The heroine, whose name is Kelsey, is hired as a summer job to be a caretaker for a tiger, obviously, a tiger, at a circus that's in the area for a couple of weeks. And she develops a bond with this tiger, and even though the story starts out in Oregon where she lives, it doesn't take too long before she and the tiger are on an airplane on their way back to the tiger's country of origin, which is India. And she's in the midst of some unexpected circumstances. It turns out that her being hired to accompany this tiger to a tiger sanctuary or refuge in India is just a ruse. And once they've landed, she finds that something very different is going on. The tiger, I now know, is actually a prince. There was some foreshadowing, pretty obvious foreshadowing of that at the beginning of the story with the prologue setting us up. But that the tiger actually is over 300 years old now and doesn't age, and has been protected by a family friend for all those years who also doesn't age throughout that time due to a magical amulet that he was given at the time that the curse was spoken. And Kelsey, the heroine, has been identified as the person who is able to break the curse, but how that's going to happen is still completely in the dark. So I don't know how long it will take them, how long they'll be on this journey to help figure out how to bring the prince back to life and let him be a free man again, or whether they'll be able to resolve the centuries-old dispute that got everything started in the first place. So that's still to come. I have liked the story so far. As unbelievable as the story is, it is written believably. So it doesn't, at least not yet, go too far off the deep end for me, where I kind of get lost in all of the hard to grasp things that can sometimes come with fantasy. I have had to make an adjustment for the genre. Other than fantasy fiction, it's also youth fiction. Some of what I've been reading lately on my own have been some pretty high levels of literature, some challenging stuff where I have to work hard at it. This is just not written that way. It's fairly straightforward, fairly simple. I find the main character in particular, a bit almost too naive. She accepts things fairly easily, doesn't ask a whole lot of questions sometimes where I would be. But she pulls it off, and the writer pulls it off acceptably enough that I'm still intrigued and interested. So I think it has more to do with just the level of writing needed for the youth fiction sort of audience. But the story is very interesting, and as my daughter indicated when she gave it to me, it's well researched. Interesting to find out tidbits of history and Indian lore and culture, and that always makes a book really interesting to me, especially if I have to reach for my Google to look something up or try and find a resource online to read more about it. I haven't quite got there yet, but I can see that it might take me there before I'm all done with it. So I'll be back after a little while when I get farther through and let you know how it's progressing.
You obviously grew up reading to both me and my younger brother, Drew. Big part of my life. It's why I like to read so much. So why did you read to us so often? What was your goal in doing that?
Oh, that's easy. I was read to as a child a lot. My parents really loved reading out loud. We read out loud in the car. My parents and my older siblings all read to me when I was growing up. So that part was, I suppose, just a demonstration, or a repeat of a demonstration for me. It was just part of who I was, and one of the things I looked forward to about parenting was being able to have time together with books. But it also was just fun, and I think I could explore when you were really little, having fun with voices and expression and things like that with kids' books, picture books. And then when we got a little bit older, reading chapter books back and forth or things like that, just discovering what you liked and maybe trying to help you figure out if you liked some of the things I liked. So
Hello everyone, I wanted to give a quick update for the progress I am making through the client. This update will be much shorter than the others I've done because it's going to be less content exposition than before, just because I don't want to give too many spoilers in case you ever pick this up. But suffice it to say that several of the predictions I had made about mob intimidation have come to pass. I won't get into specifics, but Mark is terrified, as he should be. And there has been a lot of interesting complications regarding who's going to get him to tell his story first. There is now a judge involved in trying to exact the truth from Mark, and it's interesting because it's a little bit of a mess because, you know, he's a minor and they're trying to get him to testify, but there's been no precedent for a minor being court ordered to testify or subpoenaed or anything in order to get him to tell what he knows. So it's a huge sort of, how do we progress? This has never been done before. So that part is interesting, that it's sort of groundbreaking territory. I haven't heard too much about the mobster. I think he's sort of a secondary character because the crime he committed is already finished. So maybe he'll show up again at the end if this court case ever gets resolved. Not a fan of the lawyers who are prosecuting him. I almost said persecuting, wrong word, prosecuting him. They're not great. They're, you know, trying to weasel their way into getting Mark to testify. They're not necessarily the villains. They're just sort of morally gray characters who need something from a kid and short of, you know, intimidation are willing to do pretty much anything to get it from him because it will really clinch this case, and it's a really big prize with a shiny bow on top for Reverend Roy. So I don't like any of them. I like Reggie. She's really interesting. She's definitely a unique lawyer. We got a little bit more of her backstory. I really like her assistant. Her assistant is kind of funny to me. I think really, on the whole, I'm enjoying it. But the one thing that I am kind of struggling with is I don't necessarily find Mark to be a believable character. I don't know if those are the words I want to use exactly. He sounds very smart. And by smart, I mean articulate. And not that 11-year-olds, you know, can't be smart or articulate, but they talk all the time in this book about how much law and crime TV he watches. And I'm sure he's probably picked up some of the vernacular, but the way his thought processes work, it sounds like it's coming from someone who has a fully developed cerebral cortex. And obviously when you're 11, you don't have that. So I'm just sort of struggling with like the questions he asks and the perceptiveness he displays. And again, this is me being nitpicky because he has been in situations where he's been forced to grow up. His dad was abusive and left at an early age when he was like seven or eight. So he had to grow up a lot and help. So, and I completely understand that in those situations, children act far more mature than their years suggest. So I'm sort of wrestling with that. But other than that particular thing, I'm enjoying it so far. It's reading really quickly. I didn't give you a page update. I'm currently on chapter 25, over 70% of the way done. I'm going to take a little bit of a break with this for now. So far, I'm liking it. I'm being picky about the things that I don't like or that I would change, but other than that, it's going really well.
I am back with my next installment of the update on my progress through the Tiger's Curse. You can kind of tell by the split in the book there about how far I am, just a little bit past halfway. The story has progressed to fully involving more characters. Now it was for a long time kind of limited to the people that you knew weren't going to be part of the story for very long, apart from the tiger, of course. Now we have met the Black Tiger, who turns out to be Ren's younger brother, who was also cursed at the same time. He was part of a whole kind of conspiracy trying to steal Ren's fiancée for himself. He was in love with her, and she evidently was in love with him. And everybody sort of fell into the trap of the future princess's father, who was greedy, wanting pieces and all of the kingdom. So he cursed the both of them in exchange for the deal that they made. Now here we sit with two brothers who are pretty unhappy with each other, having to come to terms with the fact that the solution to removing the curse from both of them lies in the person of Kelsey, the main character. So I'm not quite sure what to make of the new gentleman on the scene, the brother. He seems to have taken quite a liking to Kelsey, and you can see the beginnings of a love triangle showing up here, but I'm not sure if I can really trust his motives. He initially didn't want any part of having the curse removed, had just resigned himself to remaining as a tiger indefinitely, I guess. And now he seems to have had a sudden change of heart and is willing to help them. And I'm not quite sure what that's all about, whether or not it's as simple as that, or if there's a bigger wrinkle that's hiding somewhere else in the jungle that we're going to find out eventually. The course through the book has been kind of fun. The adventures that they're on are sort of Indiana Jones-esque. At least some of them have been. Others are just kind of adventure stories. And again, the writing is sort of definitely at that youth fiction level. There's not a lot of complexity to it, and sometimes it seems like some of the storylines or situations that the story takes you into are a little less complex than you might like to have. So there's that element of it that I'm craving just a little bit as I read it. But the story itself, of course, is captivating, and it's fun to see where they're going next. It's reading along fairly quickly, and that's good for me because I am not, as I've said before, a very fast reader. It does make me wonder how far this first book of the series of books is going to take me. I want to see it all get resolved by the end of the book, but I know there's sequels that are coming, so I'm not quite sure how far towards finding this Indian goddess they're going to get. And so that's the part that's kind of got me guessing right now, is whether they're going to make any real progress before this first installment of the storyline is over. So I guess we'll find out.
What are your favorite genres or tropes or types of things, subject matter to read?
Currently, my favorite genre is probably historical fiction. I didn't really come to that until my adult life, just the last several years that I've really dived into that more. So that's one. I went through my long period, like everybody else in the world, of World War II related historical fiction. And I still do enjoy that, but I kind of enjoy actually even more branching out from that into historical eras that I'm not as familiar with, and using that as a way to learn. And probably mysteries. I've always been a mystery series reader. A little bit in the thriller, not the horror type movies, but the suspense, that kind of literature. But you know what? I'm discovering I enjoy a lot of different things, and things like book challenges and watching your YouTube and a few other little influences like that have really actually encouraged me to pick up books out of genres that I don't usually read. So
Hi everyone, I wanted to give an update on The Client. I am currently on, or just about to start, chapter 35. I have 8 chapters to go, almost finished. It has moved pretty quickly, which is nice, fairly short chapters, so that's good. On the whole, it's enjoyable. The sort of legal thriller part of this, where it's sort of the unfolding of how is Mark going to reveal that he knows where the body of the senator is buried, has been interesting, in sort of a back and forth of who's going to get him to confess first. The prosecution, the judge, his mom, his own lawyer, and it's just sort of a tangle of everything. So that part is interesting. I like that it moves quickly, and ultimately I am eager to sort of figure out what happens, because there's pressure from, you know, the mafia, obviously, where if Mark doesn't confess and knows something, he's in danger of him and his family being put in danger. They already are in danger, but even more danger. And then, you know, if he confesses what happened, there's mention of witness protection, but he can't really make up his mind. So how this all gets resolved, I think, will be really interesting. I have sort of decided that there are a few parts of this story that I'm not a huge fan of. And I think it's more my own taste than anything else. Oh, I don't like adults acting like idiots or being portrayed as being, you know, not fully functioning. And I know there are obviously exceptions to all of those statements, but it really bothers me. And I'm getting a little bit of that with Mark in particular. I'm not really enjoying him as a main character, unfortunately. One, because as I mentioned earlier, he reads a lot smarter than I think he actually is, and is given a lot of confidence and capability that I'm not sure an 11-year-old who has gone through all of this trauma should be able to have. I'm struggling with it because he has just convinced his lawyer to do something ridiculous. And granted, she was sort of boxed into a corner, but it was too convenient that she agreed with him, and it's just another case of an adult sort of caving to what a child is demanding. So really the whole circumstance surrounding that I found really particularly unbelievable in my own opinion. It's interesting, it'll add some intrigue, but I was not invested in the thrill of that particular moment. And the other thing that really bothered me, again, I'm picking at small stuff, but Mark has been in the hospital for 3 days now. And this hospital, St. Peter's in Memphis, Tennessee, is supposed to be the largest hospital in the state, and it's a complete maze. It's buildings built on top of buildings and sort of morphed onto other buildings. There are elevators that have all, you know, of the floors, but they only stop at so many. It's supposed to be this big convoluted maze that everyone gets lost in. And somehow in 3 days, Mark knows everybody, knows how to get everywhere. He has made so many friends in this hospital in the span of 3 days. All while the mafia and the FBI and everything are trying to keep tabs on him. And that's a huge part of this part of the book that I'm in right now. Is like, well, he's been here for 3 days and he has the whole place memorized and he knows everybody. He's made so many friends. And I was like, oh. And I think overall, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Mark. He's not my favorite protagonist, mostly because he thinks he's real smart, and no adult has put him in his place, I guess. Not that, you know, kids need an ego check, more of a, no, every decision you are making is based on movies and TV that you have watched. That's not how real life works. I keep waiting for that ball to drop, but it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's my own insecurity about not understanding legal stuff, but Mark has such an innate knowledge of the legal system, or at least pretends to, and I don't get half of what they're saying. So maybe I shouldn't go on a quiz show of Are You Smarter Than an 11-year-old? Who knows? So I'm not entirely sure what I'm gonna rate this book. I won't reveal what I'm gonna rate it until the end, but don't think it's gonna reach my top tier mark. That's my prediction at the moment. So, like I said, overall, the story is enjoyable, and I am enjoying it. It's a quick read, and I like the drawn-out reveal of who's gonna get him to squeal first. I think that's it so far, so I will let you know when I finished it.
Hello there, I'm back. This is my next update on the Tiger's Curse book that my daughter challenged me to read for our mother-daughter book swap. And I am now at about chapter 22, it looks like, and getting close to the end. So the story has developed since the last time that I made one of these, and the Tiger Prince, I guess he is, has accompanied the main character, Kelsey, on the adventure to discover a gift that they need to collect to bring back to an ancient Indian goddess to help remove the curse. And she found favor with this Indian goddess when they visited her temple, and they were given entrance to kind of a hidden kingdom, or a variety of kingdoms, different places they had to travel through in order to get to this golden fruit, which was the first gift that she needed to collect. It turns out there will be 3 more gifts she has to collect before the curse is completely broken. In the process, of course, they have some pretty amazing and alarming adventures, and Kelsey is injured as part of that, and in the recovery from the injuries that she receives, the truly deep love that she has for this tiger man is explored, and she has decided that that's not a good thing for her, that he, having been a tiger for over 300 years, isn't ready for a relationship with someone like her, and that she, having been kind of a wallflower all of her life, is certainly not ready for a relationship with him. So really the book is turning out to be more romance than I expected when I first started reading it, although I probably should have suspected that a little bit. So this budding romance is happening. I think in one of my previous videos I talked about how there appeared to be a little bit of a love triangle setting up, but we really haven't seen anything of the third part of that triangle since much earlier in the book, and that would be the Tiger King's brother. And so I don't know if he's going to show up again, but I strongly suspect he probably will, but he's sort of dropped out of the storyline for the time being. All in all, I'm enjoying reading this book. It's a captivating story. Something new happens every chapter. The chapters are long. It's not an easy book to find a spot to put your bookmark and set it down. It kind of keeps you reading. It has a tendency to keep pulling you along through the story until you get too tired or you finally get to the end of a chapter. And it is interesting to read bits of India, kind of explore little bits of it here. I find it pretty remarkable in the writing of the story that while they are in the heart of the country of India, her experience there is still largely Americanized. The restaurants and hotels and foods that she eats and experiences that she has are sort of tailored to her that way. So her exploration of Indian culture itself seems a little bit shielded. Maybe that will become more complex later, and she'll get to explore more of that. She certainly is getting a glimpse into some history of the country, so that's been good to read about. The situational writing in this story I find is a little bit on the basic or uncomplicated or simplistic side. I don't really know how to explain that. It's just sort of the feeling I get as I read. So there's a little bit of a lack of complexity in the story, but once again, it's youth fiction, and so perhaps that is taking into account its intended audience. And so I have to make some adjustments still 3/4 of the way through the book, and I'm still sort of having to put myself in that mindset. But I have to give it credit. It is certainly an enjoyable read, and I am having a lot of fun getting through all the different adventures that they go on. A little odd, some of them. I would never have dreamed them up. So creativity abounds in this writer's mind, certainly. And I'm eager to find out how this first book in the series wraps up and how it finishes out the first part of the journey, knowing that there are, I think, 3 more adventures to come. It's not a trilogy as I originally thought. It has 4 parts, so we'll see how it all goes. Anyway, I'll be done shortly, so I'll let you know how the whole thing turns out.
So then, just a side question, what makes a book good for you? What are some things you look for, like, generally over all your books? 'Cause it varies with genre, but like what makes a book good for you?
Okay. My first easy answer, and this is one I've come to really appreciate in the last few years, is if a book engages me enough that I have to reach for my phone to Google something that I have never heard before, a word or a location or an event or a person whose name is brought up that I know is real and I have no idea what that's about. If it makes me do that, I probably like the book. So that's a big one for me. I love it when a book is teaching me something and it makes me interested enough to want to know more, not just what little bit I can glean out of the text. So that's a big one.
Would that be similar to like what you looked for with good books when you were younger, or do you think that is more to do with the stage of life?
When I was a kid, all I wanted to do was read about horses.
That's true.
Anything
You're the most horse girl who'd never owned a horse.
Yeah, probably. That's probably true. I lived my horse life between the covers of a book. I really did. It's true. It's very true.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're both done now. We finished it. It is June 5th. We started this before Easter, and we did not get it done by Mother's Day, which was the goal. But it didn't happen, and I thought it was funny because I speed read through 3/4 of this, and you weren't even a third of the way done with that book, and so I'm like, oh, I'll wait, and then she finished it before I did.
Tortoise.
I know, we said a little bit of a tortoise and
tortoise
hair. What would you give it out of 5 stars? You can do half stars if you want.
Oh, I can do half stars? Ooh. I think I'd probably go 3.5.
Okay.
If that's fair.
Oh, it's more than I thought you were gonna give it.
Oh, well, I don't know what my scale is like compared to yours.
Mine is cutthroat.
3. To me, a 5-star is a book I think everybody should read, and I would read multiple times if I had the time and I was a faster reader. It's that kind of it has to be what I would feel is quality, eternal to a point. You know, it's a book that's going to persist and carry through.
For you, or do you mean for everybody?
Both, I think.
Okay.
Most of the books I would give 5-star to, I think, are going to be considered classics at some point in their day, or at least persistent. You know, they're going to go from generation to generation because people love them.
Yeah.
A 1, I've never given a book a 1 that I can think of.
I have. I give a book a half a star.
Well, that's the kind of book I would just chuck and say it should never be written.
If I start a book, I'm gonna finish it. I don't DNF.
So 3 to me was it's enjoyable. I'm glad, I'm happy I read it. I'm glad I had the reading experience. 4 would be I would recommend it. That, hey, you should really like this. I think you'd like this. So I guess I would fall somewhere in between 3 and 4, mostly because I don't hang out in a reading circle with a lot of youth. So, it's not a book I'm going to recommend to all my adult friends who are in reading groups with me, unless they specifically are looking for something like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, my 3 is where I would put like the classics, where this is going to last for a long time. Everybody's going to enjoy this book. So then the higher I go, the more personalized it is for me. Like a number 5 is, yes, I'm going to recommend this to everybody I know because I love it so much, and I would reread it for all eternity. I don't know if they will or if they'll ever enjoy it, but for me, that's what marks a 5. But I think I would give this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars. And when I give something a 2-star rating, typically I give 2-star ratings when I'm not the intended audience, or I think this is for a different type of reader than me. So I think people who really like John Grisham will want to read his early stuff, or I think people who like mob boss, lawyer, legal type of thing would enjoy this. That's just not something that I enjoy to read. But I will give it a half because of the things that I enjoyed about it. How quickly it moved, how much it sucked me, and I liked that it dumped you right in the middle of the conflict, and I liked Reggie, so I'm going to boost it just a little bit. But that's what I would give it.
Fair enough.
Okay. Do you want to do this again sometime?
Yeah, we should. We should make it an annual event.
Okay.
I'm good
I
with
gotta
that.
wait another year to make you read the second one.
I still have 28 books or more to read this year.
And I'm only a quarter of the way through my 100 book goal, and we're halfway through the year, so I got some big catch up to do.
Me too.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
You're
Good
welcome.
idea.
Thank you. I go
should
put this
try
back
it.
on my shelf, fill the empty hole. Okay, all done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for participating in this.
But
with
why
me.
not?
I love that attitude. Why not?
Dive in. Do something different. It's COVID after all.
That's true.